So that means we're live?
We're live. Hello and welcome to another
Hey.
episode of Hex Therapy Live. I'm your host, Maddie Allin, with special guest NrdGrl 007.
Hey, Maddie, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm so excited to have you as a guest. You are a super connector, as we would say in psychology, within the cryptosphere. So that means that you have lots of connections to different people.
I build bridges.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you've created your own show. I saw it just the other day, your first episode with NrdGrl.
Yep, that was really fun. I enjoyed it.
Do
Yeah,
you know
so
who you're having next week
oh my gosh,
or
no.
this
I've
week?
been so it's so funny. I've been so busy with work that I forgot to book someone. And then I realized today, I was like, oh my God, it's Thursday and I don't have anyone booked. So I know that I'm going to be able to take care of it tomorrow. I'm just not exactly sure who it's going to be yet, you know?
Cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'm sure it'll be somebody good. And
Well, no matter what, it's going to be somebody good, like who's bad, right?
so I'll be looking forward to that stream. And I've got a quick 30-second intro to do here. And then we'll get started.
All right, sounds good.
Cool.
We're back.
We're back. So I'm wearing my Bitcoin shirt to
Okay.
try to prove that I'm not just in the Hex tribe, but I'm not sure if I'm doing that right. So
I mean, I'm really impressed. Honestly, like I love it. You know, not because I think that everybody should love Bitcoin or everybody should love, all the coins, but like I do really strongly feel that maximalism is stupid.
yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background with that and I know you can write a whole doctoral thesis about it. But I'm like so
Like a quick summary, is that what you mean?
yeah,
Okay. So
an
when
abstract.
I got into crypto, it was late 2016. The first thing that I saw was tribalism, or the existence of groups that were excluding other groups, and I wanted to study it because I had dropped out of my PhD program, which was in religious studies. Before I was in crypto. Like years before, I was living in Iran doing research on rogue implementations of Sharia law for crimes of apostasy. So like when vigilantes were killing people for converting from Islam to any other religion, that's what I was looking at. Even though it wasn't officially state sanctioned, I was just like, and I saw that happening again in cryptocurrency. So I started studying it. When I got started, the first big assignment that I took for a crypto media outlet was just studying a really, really horrible case of it before Hex. And I went to a conference in Canada to talk to the leader. And the day after that conference, when I was kind of in enemy territory, I went to an Ethereum conference and realized while I was at the Ethereum conference that the people there were probably like that I was treated better at the other opposing camps, conference than somebody from that there would have been treated at the Ethereum conference. And it just brought back all of this, I don't know, trauma, I guess, from what I had seen and experienced when I was living abroad. And I knew that that was already what I was studying. It was already what I was doing. I just knew that I had to go at it even harder.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because I've heard your background story before, but I didn't realize that part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean,
so,
I cried in the bathroom at this conference because I realized just how extremely bad it was.
yeah, yeah. Well, that gives a lot of meaning then as well to your mission in crypto, which is to build bridges.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so what does that mean? So what do you prescribe now for people maybe in the Hex community who are watching? Like, what are ways that we can um, have better behavior when it comes to other crypto communities?
Well, so it's not like I want to tell you guys that your behavior has to improve or say no or something because I'm not your mom, right? Like I can only say that based on, my experience as a sociologist and, as a human science, as a studier of humans. Sorry, I'm really tired.
You're good.
That that it's really not productive when I understand why Hex community has become really isolated because you've been really rejected from larger crypto, so you've just created your own groups. But I've seen this in other crypto groups, and I've seen this in groups outside of cryptocurrency. And what ends up happening is that it's not long-term productive because you just get isolated, and then you only hear the people you create this little echo chamber, and then nobody from outside is listening to you, and nobody from inside is talking to anybody on the outside because they'll be, shunned from the inside if they do. And that's a
Yes.
huge problem. And, specifically in cryptocurrencies, I've seen it happen. I've seen projects that had really strong fundamentals and strong communities completely fall apart because they weren't paying attention to how insulated they'd become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
that's fascinating. I
yeah.
saw that just earlier this week. I started going into Bitcoin rooms and speaking about Bitcoin, like not
Mm-hmm.
even bringing up Hex, and I was met with like accusations that I was trying to promote Hex just because people showed up in the chat who like had Hex logos on their profile, like
Mm-hmm.
not even me really uh, mentioning Hex more than like, you know, more than like saying the word once and then like moving on from it and like demonstrating lots of knowledge in the Bitcoin area. Like,
Oh yeah, no,
um,
that's for sure a thing. Like I, said before, I've lost friends over this Hex thing. I've lost friends prior to Hex, but it's never been as pronounced, I would say. In my experience. So, it's definitely a problem. What do I think that Hexikins could do differently? I can give you one really good example from just a couple of days ago. And all my days are running together because I don't even know what day it is right now. But just so you know. Um, so if I say a couple of days ago, it might have been like 5. It could have been earlier today, you know. Um, yeah. We were talking about having a Hex fashion show. Some of the girls were talking about a Hex fashion show, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if it was like a crypto fashion show? And it could be like the whole point would be that it was to showcase a designer's work. So there are some like Crypto Styles USA who makes things from various places, like or for various coins. Why couldn't every coin just who had a community that wanted to participate? Why would it have to be a Hex fashion show? And then when I suggested this, one of the girls in particular was like, well, nobody wants to work with Hexikins, we've been rejected, so we just do our own thing. And I'm like, cool. Well, when you're rejected, I understand that hurts, but the way that you move forward from it isn't to go ahead and do that to everybody else. It's to go
mm.
what are we going to do differently?
Yeah, yeah, that's an excellent example. Yeah, I'm launching my own line of I don't know if I'd call it Hex. It's like Hex therapy clothing and like just different art I've done. Yeah, so like I've got mini skirts and coffee mugs and all kinds of stuff out there for people now.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Uh, but yeah, I saw that thread, and so yeah, I think that's an outstanding example
So
of how people.
that was kind of where I came from, where I said, like, you know what, I totally support whatever you guys do, but like I'm gonna participate. I will participate if this is a collaborative thing, but I'm not going to participate in something that's like furthering the creation of an echo chamber. Just not going to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good line to draw in the sand, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
And so that's a good example of how people in Hex can maybe build bridges by being more inclusive and not assuming that will always be shunned from every community, because even with the first guest that you had, NrdGrl, she seems to be a connector between different communities as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Oh, and another thing is, yeah, assuming that, I again understand, because it's natural to feel like you're under attack when you've been under attack for so long. But, I can say that sometimes, at least earlier on, especially in the quick swap chat, some Hexicans got like just really super defensive, like unnecessarily and aggressive with people. And it was like, man, this was supposed to be a chance for like people to see that like Hex isn't, like that it's not all, it doesn't always have to be like this. And unfortunately, like these people still feel this way, and it's absolutely reflecting in how people perceive not just the community but the coin token.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's interesting. That's another example for sure of people being quick to judge, or people maybe like not realizing how their words and actions can come across to other people in the crypto space. For sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, that said, like I've explained, the more isolated from a group that a group is, the more isolation that breeds. So I understand it. It's just that at some point somebody has to do something. Like, okay, well, they're not going to change and I can't make them change. Who can I make change? Me? Maybe? I mean,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The best way to change somebody else's behavior is changing your own some of the time.
Yep.
So lead by example. I still feel like I'm really missing part of the context of like the whole tribal issue in Hex, because I actually did not pay attention to any crypto media before I started really making it myself. Or at least maybe I was just in the Bitcoin echo chamber. Probably. This is probably more like how it really was.
So you were in the Bitcoin echo chamber and you didn't detect the Hex tribalism?
I didn't follow anything about Hex other than just like, learning about it. I decided, all right, I'm totally into Bitcoin, but like, now I've learned how to run my own node and this and that, so I had imported ASIC miners from China and done physical Bitcoin projects and stuff that all like, it was interesting to me as a hobby. And so the next step I got into was like claiming Bitcoin airdrops. And so there were actually two different coins that I started paying attention to, one being Hex and the other Mimblewimble coin. And because those were the two where it was my opportunity to learn how to do one of these signatures, right? So that I could prove that I owned some Bitcoin to claim some coins. And so I guess that was my first exposure to like other communities. And so then I started following Hex, but it wasn't like I was following any of the people in Hex, or I didn't really even know that much about the hexologists until I, in the summer or something. So,
Okay.
so I was like, yeah, I guess I kind of wandered in and like then when I started creating content about 4 months ago, you know, everything seemed cool. But along the way, I've noticed like, you know, oh, there's lots of tension between like Hex and everybody else. And now when I go into these Bitcoin rooms and talk, it's like, you know, saying the word Hex is like it's worse than like saying the worst word you could think of. I don't know. It's, and I don't really understand like what happened. Did like everybody in the Hex community like go out on Twitter and like make a bunch, like, did they like insult a bunch of people, or I mean,
Well, so
what
I mean,
happened here?
what really happened was that the Hex community was under attack, being called scam, 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 scammer, scammer, scammer for, you know, over a year, and
Okay.
as a result, they got defensive. I mean, like
Okay.
that's what
Yeah.
happened.
Okay.
You know, I mean, not to say that like it was right for Hexicans to like get that way, but it was a natural reaction. Like that's how groups under attack, crypto or non, behave.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think that helps me a little bit more. Cause I've kind of put the pieces together before, but, never really gotten any confirmation. So, and it makes me wonder, like, it seems like Hex was kind of designed to look like a scam. And I almost wonder if it wasn't like some sort of thing where in order to create new whales, you kind of have to make the old whales think there's nothing to see here.
Oh, so you know what's funny is that I've asked Richard that question before. And like, not to say that he definitely told me the truth, because he totally could have lied. But I once asked him, hey, did you make did you make it look like a scam so that everyone would hear the word over and over again and some people would look into it? Like, was this all part of your master, you know, marketing plan? Because, you know, he's worked in marketing.
Yes.
So, and he said that sadly it was not, but that doesn't mean that that's the truth. But that I have asked that question before.
Because I go back and I look now through a different lens at like some of the talks that he's done before. And I guess it was the day that Hex launched, he had been awake for like 2 days straight. And he went on, what was it? It wasn't Tone Vase, was it? It was Tone Vase and his two lawyers. And it was a show that they do about scam coins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Richard, like, you know, decided to spend the first few hours that the Hex contract launched was like on a show that calls out scam coins. And it was a really interesting thing. I went back and rewatched it because of the Hex 2020 Rewind show, like, has a good clip from that where the lawyers are calling Richard, you know, a scammer, like, you know, this doesn't really, you know, monetize the time value of money. Like, this is an 8th grade, you know, econ project, like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that clip now that you remind me. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. It's totally possible that was always part of the plan. You know, I mean, if you can't get positive media attention, maybe generate some negative media attention and see what you can build from it.
Well, it attracts, I guess, people who are there to look deeper are the only ones who end up buying, compared to people who just get repelled by the surface. They don't, you know, I've said before, like, you know, you would have to get past all that and then do multiple hours of research before like really buying into something like Hex, especially early on. So, I think all of like the psychology and like the reverse psychology and like all this other stuff is like really fascinating. Like myself, I struggle with the concept of like, you know, like promoting Hex is like, that's something I like. And I'll talk to you here in a second about like why I'm in crypto. But I think like part of me is like, yeah, I want lots of people to find out about Hex today and like start buying it. But then part of me is like, oh, like I'm still accumulating. Like, how many people do I really want to like find out about Hex before,
Mm-hmm.
before it just kind of does its thing naturally? And what are your thoughts kind of on that like dilemma?
So I would say that I have been more or less all in crypto since 2016. That doesn't mean that I'm not still accumulating. Like, I mean, I work in cryptocurrency, I get paid in cryptocurrency. So like, I mean, like, not that I don't want to continue accumulating more, but like, I'm not going to be upset at all.
Sure.
When it takes off. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, damn, I wish that, like, be like, my bags have been packed for a long time. Let's go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. I can see that. And I don't like look back too often and like wish I bought more, I guess, like, cause I don't try to like play those games with myself. Cause really the reality is that when you're in touch with reality, then you can say you've always been doing your best, even when your best wasn't good enough. Like that's a DBT principle that helps people to kind of accept where they're at and then do better with that energy instead of like having that energy to only regret things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't change what's already happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think I continue to learn more and more from you about like what the different angles are on the whole tribalism thing. It seems like a huge can of worms to me, and something that I guess. So what's your advice to like other communities?
Same stuff, don't get isolated in an echo chamber. Don't get mad at people who like coins that are, or tokens that are different from what you like. You don't, your friends don't necessarily pay for the same, I don't know, like I live in the US, right? But I have friends who live in other countries and we don't pay for goods and services in the same currency. But that has no impact on my friendship with them or how I feel about them. So cryptocurrency really shouldn't be any different. It's just like, okay, I like this coin, you like that coin. I'm going to hold this one, you hold that one. I hope you get rich. You can hope I get rich too. We don't have to be at war.
Mm-hmm. We don't have to get rich at the same time.
We don't have to get rich at the same time.
We don't both have to be right or wrong or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like, cool. Like, I mean, cool if we have different coins. Like, I don't know. I think the thing is like, don't get so stuck into one thing that you won't even have friends who don't share your opinion, because then you're not challenging yourself. You're just going to get stuck in an echo chamber.
Yeah. I mean, you don't get mad at your friend if you're playing a video game like Super Smash Brothers and like they don't do very well. Like, you feel good about that if they make different moves than you do, or like, you don't have to. But I think maybe some people, they're looking for like validation that like they're in the right thing. And so the more people that they see in something else,
yeah, no, for sure. But like, I mean, I think that there's a thing about like checking that, like when you feel that way,
absolutely.
Check it in with yourself, be like, oh yeah, that's kind of weird. For instance, I have this friend who's a Bitcoin total Bitcoin maximalist. And when we became friends, we had this conversation that was like, hey, you're a maximalist, I'm a multi-coiner, let's just be friends anyway, and we came to some like general terms. Okay, this is what we're going to do. And sometimes when we have conversations, he'll be like violating the terms. And I'm like, hey, not calling me a shitcoiner is one of the terms,
Yeah.
Like, you're not allowed to call me a shitcoiner, and I'm not to call you toxic. Like that's the deal. And like, also not trying to change my mind, right? So when we talk, I'll talk about coins, but I'm never trying to change my friend's mind. When we talk and he talks about Bitcoin and Bitcoin only and why it can be Bitcoin only, I can hear him without thinking, oh, he's trying to change my mind right now. It's just like having a dialogue and sharing our thoughts and perceptions. But a lot of times I find him slipping into the trying to change my mind. And that's when I'm like, I'll shut down. Like, don't try to
And
change my mind.
yeah, and so that's really great that you have like terms with your friend and boundaries basically,
Well,
that
because
you've
I
agreed
wanted to make
on.
sure that the friendship could survive.
Yes. Now, what do you recommend for people if they're trying to, like, what's the difference between onboarding and, like, I guess, like, in that situation you have an agreement that neither of you is going to try to change each other's minds, but like
Mhm.
what's your experience been with people who are trying to onboard their friends, and like, obviously it seems like that could go terribly wrong, like if you onboard your friends like at the wrong time in the market, and
Yeah,
who can
imagine
really time
onboarding your
anything.
friends like right before big payday.
Sure.
You know? Um, yeah. So like, here's the thing. I'll help people buy Hex. I'll help onboard people, but only when they say, "Hey, help me buy Hex." Right? Like, I need
Mm-hmm.
some help. Help me buy and stake some Hex. Other than that, I'm just like, yeah, this is what I own. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't try to convince anybody. I mean, like, sometimes when people are really anti Hex, I'll be like, do you think that it's possible that you've been manipulated by crypto media? And here's why I say this. And then, like,
Ooh.
I think I've shared that. I shared that on the girls the last time that we did the girls Discord, the Stolen Discourse Syndicate. But I said, like, I don't try to convince people to buy Hex at all, ever. I just try, like, if I'm trying to convince somebody of something, what I'm trying to convince them of is the possibility that they've been manipulated. And like, all I try to convince people of is to say, hey, is it possible that you were manipulated? Or is it possible that you bought into the hype? Is
Mm-hmm.
it possible that you were wrong? And if, like, it doesn't matter, because everyone has to admit that it's at least possible. Not necessarily that they did, but that it's at least possible, which opens a door.
And everybody's riding a bull market, so it's really hard to tell.
Yeah. Well, except for Hexagons right now. Jeez.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, for the last little bit.
Oh, the interest is so good.
Yeah, no, I know it is. I know it is. I know it is. But, for people who aren't comfortable with long-term stakes, and maybe you're doing shorter stakes, and yeah, I mean, there's even discontent within the Hex community.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So there's all of these different theories like whirling around about like encapsulated stakes, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was trying to make up my mind about it all, and I was learning a lot from different people. I had read, like, right when Hex Bay came out with their Medium articles that included like dev chats with Richard, and like there's a lot of material out there that they've put out. And but then I started thinking about it, and I got really excited because I think encapsulated stakes, like, no matter what you want to call them, is kind of a representation of something that I've always wanted to do in crypto. So when I first found out about Bitcoin, I got really excited about applying an area of psychology called contingency management to that.
Mhm.
And in contingency management, what you're doing is you're paying people to change their behavior, oftentimes to like quit using a substance of abuse. And
Mhm.
so, as a substance abuse and a mental health counselor, I'm working with people every day, and you know, Medicaid and, like, other medical providers and stuff are putting like lots of money into trying to change people's behavior, and I think, like, based on my neuroscience background of understanding independent variables and like how to really make behavior change happen, like I'm pretty good at it, but not as good as really we could be, right? Like I'm really like innovation driven and like always trying to optimize things. And And so I've always been obsessed with this idea of people being able to pay themselves in crypto to change their behavior, because contingency management, it's the most effective intervention in all of psychology, even though it's like ignored, right? Like we do talk therapy a lot more than like paying people to change their behaviors, but paying people is what works. And we kind of see that with like people's jobs and stuff. Everybody, like, if they work for money, and like that's like a general reinforcer for people. And so with programmable money, you would be able to pay yourself in a way that you couldn't by just holding like a physical store of value. If I already have a car, then like I can't give myself a car if I quit smoking tobacco, or if I like, stay away from an unhealthy relationship or something like that. Even with paper money, even with centralized money, like that's not the optimal solution. Like the optimal solution is basically to have a cryptocurrency that is, first of all, isn't being debased, right, by the government, isn't being printed ad infinitum, but like also represents like the bearer asset, but that you could lock up. And so I would call this something like instead of a time lock, it'd be a behavior lock. And so I see like, so even before Hex, I made a proof of concept where, I like figured out how to basically program a Bitcoin node, although, maybe I was missing one line of code to be able to make this whole thing work. But I proved to myself, like, take the Fitbit SDK. So like they have a server that like spits out all the data if you have a key for it. And so I basically came up with a system to like pay myself in Bitcoin for every step I take.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then when I see Hex, or when I like started to see what Hex was doing, then I realized that in some ways Hex is a system that allows you to change your own behavior when it comes to saving, because it allows you to do a immutable time lock and to send value to your future self, basically. And so so I'm asking lots of people to give me their feedback on like this idea of like doing behavior locks, and what you think about that as kind of like a use case for Hex or for crypto, or for basically for just the idea of people being able to make to optimize their own behavior in crypto.
Yeah, no, I think that it's a really interesting idea and a cool one. I recently had a conversation with someone who was telling me, struggling, like, yeah, but if I pay this person, then like, they just dump the coins, that you're just dump it on the market, and da-da. And I'm like, actually, like, Hex has a really kind of cool solution for this. Like you could do a staking ladder so that the person was paid like gradually over time, and like theoretically over time, as the person's financial situation continues to improve, or as the person sees some stability financially, that like they will become more healthy, and it will be less likely that they engage in these negative behaviors. And the person who I was talking to about it was like, for the first time ever, I'm kind of interested in Hex. So, yeah, totally makes sense. I don't know how you would really like what would be if you were going to behavioral lock. So it would have to be that you put your own funds in towards your behavioral lock, right? So like
you could plug in like insurance companies, like they already dabble in like paying people to quit smoking tobacco, or like, like parents could pay their kids to like get good grades on their report card. And like so the first thing you run into when we start talking about the brass tacks of all this is that like you have an Oracle problem. And the solution for that basically would be, in some cases there are devices that already tell us like our geolocation and like tell us how many steps we took or how active we were. And in other cases, there's just no way, like, or like we already have, like, we have doctors. So like, I could email, or the system could email your doctor a key, like, that, basically they would have to give back to you in order to unlock your funds or something. But I think like with programmable money, it's really like, the options are endless. And I think until there were good ways to validate things automatically, it would actually be a benefit to the system to have humans doing the validation work, because that would also increase the virality of the system. So yeah, I think like there's just like so many possibilities. It's hard to like zero in on one thing, but yeah, like for example, let's say like, I want to program myself in my moment of clarity. I want to program myself to like not go to my ex's apartment, right? So like I can use my phone, right? And I can use programmable money like Hex to lock a certain amount of money for a certain amount of time. And like, maybe if I break my agreement to myself, then like that money gets kicked out super far in the future where I don't want it or something. Right. And like,
but how do you like, I mean, so what then like it knows because of your geolocation? Like
if I wanted to leave my phone at home and go to my ex's, like I could still do that.
Yeah.
But like, then for me, like, I'd be like, I miss my phone,
Yeah.
So it's like, for each person, there's, in psychology, sometimes we think of like nudging behavior as being super effective rather than like making it absolute, or saying like, I lose all my money if I go over there, and then like the app or like your phone glitches and then like, oops, like everything just got burned. Sorry, like bad user experience. But if there were some like safeguards in place where it just kind of nudged your behavior, then it would, I think it would play better that way even. And it would be easier to build, instead of trying to think of like, oh, what's the one way everybody's going to try to get around it, and then what's the second and the third way. I don't think that level is necessary. Like, let's say I'm paying myself to quit smoking tobacco cigarettes, and like, I have to give a validator token to my doctor. Well, like, if my Hex goes up 1,000x, and then like, now I could just pay my doctor. I could be like, hey, yo, here's $50,000 to like, give me that token back before I even quit smoking. Right. And so, but that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be kind of like good enough, or like nudging enough to where like, oh, that's kind of inconvenient. Like, I don't want to have to bribe my doctor. So like, maybe I'll just quit smoking, or maybe I'll game the system. I'll get my money back, and then I'll be right back where I started, where I have a behavior I want to change. Now I have to make new rules to change it.
No, I think that what you're talking about is really interesting. And I see where you're going with it. Like, I mean, I think that there are a lot of really interesting things about time deposits that we haven't really even begun to consider. And there's also like, when I was starting to like, I don't know, when I was getting really into Hex, I started also working on a paper that I still haven't finished, about the impacts of sudden wealth syndrome. And then like,
cool.
and then I realized, while I was writing this paper about the impacts of sudden wealth syndrome, that like actually that had been calculated into Hex, and like it was very much a part of the construction.
It had calculated in the terms of like time locking would give people time to basically like learn how to deal with the shock of like this,
prevent a certain degree of sudden, of sudden wealth, and also the low liquidity.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's definitely part of the design, I think.
So yeah, while I was doing the research, I was like, oh yeah, makes sense that I got here at the same time as I got here. Like, this goes together.
Yeah, totally. I know what you're saying. And I want to compliment you for the work, the writing that you have done on the Hex contract layman's terms V2. And I link to it on all my links. Because I think it's such an important part of like the people understanding what it is they're dealing with here in Hex.
I was like a little bit upset when I wrote it. I should probably clean it up a little bit
What do you
now.
mean? You're upset?
When I wrote it, I was like, I was conned like, it was like a little bit, maybe there's a little bit too much fluff or something in the intro.
It stands on its own differently than like the other version that
Mhm.
Kyle wrote. Yours is more engaging, I think.
So, well, I mean, the whole reason that any of that even came up was that I realized after after the launch phase was over that document, not only was it not easy to find, because it's not like it's just like a Google document that's linked, somewhere you couldn't like search it on the Hex page, but that was way overly complicated and explained functions that were no longer like that people who were getting into Hex didn't need to know all of that stuff about how it worked prior. And so I sent Richard a message in Telegram. I was like, I need to rewrite this. And he was like, yeah, do it.
Nice. And you did it.
I did, yes. That was my Hexmas present to all of you. I published it on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to see it, you can go to allmylinks.com/allin, and you can see that the NerdGrl 007 version of the Hex contract in layman's terms.
Layperson's terms. The layperson.
Okay. Layperson's.
Yeah. Layperson's guide
That's
to the
even
Hex
better.
Smart Contract. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the other insight that I've had being in crypto, and I think in Hex, but even before Hex, when I was studying like the Bitcoin standard and I took 3 of the classes with Safety and the stuff that he teaches in his academy and stuff like that. I mean, there's so much valuable. There's so much value in having a hard money that has a provable economic policy going forward, like even into the subconscious productivity and mental well-being of the population. Have you studied any of that or come across any of that material before?
No, I don't think that I have. I'm not sure that I know what you mean. So I have asked this question before, even like long before Hex existed. One of the first things that I noticed about people who were getting involved with cryptocurrency was that it seemed like a lot of times those people also got involved with like I don't know, self-improvement stuff. And I was trying to find the connection between the two. And I always thought that there was a connection between blockchain and mental health.
Yeah. Safety doesn't talk about the mental health, but he talks about kind of like the productivity and the ability of a group of people to go to do 0 to 1 inventions. And he uses really good examples from history of when societies were on a gold standard, they were making greater leaps forward. And I think part of his thesis is that because technology is advancing us so much, and maybe I'm taking some of this from like Jeff Booth and like Peter Thiel and different people.
Blending.
The idea that kind of technology advances us so much, like so far forward. And that's kind of like even with fiat money going burr and like taking away from the abundance that the world would see, like it still feels like we're making progress. So it kind of creates this cover for the elite class to steal more in terms of inflation, in terms of taxation, in terms of all these things. And really, I mean, there's problems with money, like there's no capital destruction, right? I can't remember what the official term for that is, but like there are all these mechanisms of even capitalism that are kind of broken when you don't have a hard money, and then people don't even realize what the effects are on society. And all like safety goes into this huge rabbit hole of like the nutritional value of food, and that like basically government, like especially the US government, subsidizes like corn production, and then basically everything you're eating is like sugar or corn syrup and stuff that can be like scaled because that helps to hide how much money they're printing. Whereas things like meat that aren't as scalable and create tons of greenhouse gases and stuff like that, the price of that is harder to control. And so they're like running these campaigns to make people think that meat's bad for you. When in reality, like there's a lot of nutrition that goes into that. And then one of the things that I've seen like firsthand is how omega-3 can literally change people's lives, which is, are you familiar with omega-3 at all? So like omega-3 is the material that your brain needs in order to create the electrical insulation for the wires for your neurons. And so the myelin sheath part of the axon is created by having omega-3 in your system. And the amount of omega-3 that goes into the food supply, like, isn't enough anymore for people to get enough because, whatever meat and like different things that people are eating, like those animals aren't like grazing on grass and like getting, getting their natural omega-3s that work their way up the food chain. And so like so whenever I see people and they start taking omega-3, including myself, like I thought I was functioning pretty well, like going through life, but then taking omega-3 like allowed my prefrontal cortex to operate in a much better way. And so kind of this idea, and then I see it in my clients, like their lives change when the electricity in their prefrontal cortex stops leaking out. And it tells, like, I think it speaks a lot about what's going on in the society when people have such difficulty making healthy choices for themselves. And like, that's a product of malnutrition and prefrontal cortex like problems.
No, so I just wrote down omega-3. I used to take it and then I haven't for a while, and I'm like, oh yeah, obviously I need to take that again.
It's the best kind you can get is 369.
Okay.
Which is it's coincidental that's the Hex 3.69.
Oh, you think it's coincidental?
Yes.
Not all just planned.
Well, like Richard does 3.69 because of like Tesla and like all this weird math stuff, and like so I think probably more likely.
Why do they do it?
I think like the omega-3 like molecule is probably like named because maybe of the math stuff, not because of anything else. But yeah. So I think I've learned a lot from like other crypto communities, and so it's a shame that we're all like in competition for the same dollars whenever like, the government's printing so much money and like crypto offers such a solution.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that that's a really important point that is, something that I was really harping on at the beginning early on as well, and haven't really talked about that much lately. And that's that, sorry. Oh my God, I'm so tired. That is that when we're fighting with each other, we can't possibly be at war with the existing financial system. And that one way for destroying a protest group or a protest movement is to make the group fight within itself. Totally. And like, I absolutely believe that it's possible, likely even, that these kind of fights within cryptocurrency were intentionally orchestrated by professional, I don't know.
Because that's what Russia does to the United States, right? Like that's
what the United States does in countries where,
yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. All these governments are doing it to each other and running these covert operations to like, to make it seem like it's coming from within the community.
Distract and divide. That's the strategy.
Do you think that that's what happened with like the New York agreement?
Yeah, so God, nobody ever talks about the New York Agreement anymore. Yeah, I do.
Because not that many leaders were actually there. Wasn't it just a bunch of miners and like companies?
Yeah, so there's so much about that like I can't even find everything. And like
Really?
even when like
Wow.
you go asking around about it, people are really tight-lipped.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think they're tight-lipped about that?
I think that a lot of it has to do with there being a like massive lack of understanding about what happened because yeah, because it wasn't a public event. You know, nobody really knows what happened because what was expected to happen didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Are, do you support like central bank digital currencies?
I don't even have a bank account.
Okay. So, no.
No, I don't know how I would. What do you mean specifically?
Well, like, what about Facebook coin? Do you like that?
I don't own any. I don't really know anything about it. I know
Like,
that they like tried to launch Libra and it got shut down, and they've been like doing different. But like I'm not paying attention.
um, like one of my favorite moments in like crypto history is whenever somebody posted a letter from the Senate Finance Committee to some of the CEOs that were in the Libra Association, telling them that they would get prosecuted for child pornography and money laundering and terrorism if they continued to participate in the Libra Association. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's like signed by these senators and stuff right there in like black and white ink. And, it, then you see which companies get out and which stay in. And so it really shows like the power divide of like the world where the Silicon Valley companies, they're staying in it. And
Mm-hmm.
then the banking sector companies, they're getting out. And so, especially with my experience, being in crypto and like being turned off probably accidentally by like, by PayPal and Cash App, like, you know, the way that the US government fights terrorism these days is like through the global financial system and through
Mm-hmm.
bankers in some cases more than soldiers. And so I just think it's so fascinating to like see where the divide is
Sorry,
in
did you
that
just say that
moment.
the way that the government fights terrorism is through bankers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, because of like basically controlling like money transfers. Like that's why you can't go to your bank and get like $10,000 cash, or that's like the limit before they track you. And like in a lot of cases, they have to like order it in the first place. But like some banks are tracking you now, even if you get like $2,000 in cash.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's
So I have a
all.
different perspective on that. I would
Okay.
say that the way that the government finances terrorism is
Ooh,
through
yeah,
is through banks and the banking system and our finance system. Um,
totally.
mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You've definitely increased my understanding in that area. But it's interesting to me because now it seems like the government's cool with Facebook Coin being rebranded as Diem, and so that makes me think that there've been a lot of backroom deals going on.
Well, yeah, I imagine so.
They have 2.5 billion supposedly monthly active users, so I think that'll be a pretty like important like moment in crypto history whenever
So are
they
you
like
in this
launch
coin?
it
Is
here.
that what you're trying to tell
Like
me?
I'm just like I'm
I don't
totally
care.
against
I
it.
don't care.
I'm totally
I don't
against it.
care.
Like it doesn't exist yet. It's gonna be a stable coin.
Hmm.
I just think it's
Backed by a
gonna be a big
basket of
deal.
currencies, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like which is like everything about it is shady.
Mhm.
It's just something that seems like they're being really quiet about, but they're saying like they've updated the website, like they're saying there's going to be launched anytime now. So I think that'll it'll be interesting to see how that plays out too in terms
Hmm.
of, but it made me kind of think of like, that's not crypto, right? So like, if I rage against those people, then like that's cool with you, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. It's all fine with me. I'm just going to tell you when I think that it's unproductive.
Okay. So we can be humanists and like hate central bankers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's better to be like, hate the central banks rather than the bankers because, like, they're just people with jobs and families and, expenses.
For sure.
Like, I don't know if it's productive to hate people ever. I think it's productive to dislike institutions.
Yeah, that's very wise. I think because
That said,
it's
it still
because
comes out. Like it still comes out. I mean, like I'm not perfect. When I first started working on the quick stop stuff, I think one of the like slogan things that I came up with was like dragons eat unicorns. Do you remember that?
uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that
And
was
it was like,
brilliant.
oh my God, like everybody, it was like everybody loved it. It was so funny and like weird and, whatever. And I didn't even like, I just thought that it was like, I don't know, I just thought that it was fun. Like we're just like poking a little bit of fun, being playful. I didn't even realize like that there were people who were really upset by it. And like, I was like, oh my God, I'm as bad as the people who who I try to tell, like, don't be so aggressive and, it doesn't have to be like this. And I was like, oh, I'm terrible.
I don't that it just seems like good-hearted fun. I mean, if
Like
you're
that's I just meant it and like I just thought that it was funny.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean it's good that you're able to like even look at yourself and like um kind of understand like your own kind of I get what it sounds like you're practicing what you preach.
I try. I mean, I wouldn't have
Yes.
caught that on my own. Someone definitely pointed it out. But yeah, I try. When I catch myself, I revise.
Mm. Yeah, I've always felt bad about like making a video about Brad Mill something. He yeah, that's probably like my like greatest like tribal moment that I'm not sure about like because he went on Richard's stream and like was like being really rude and then he like bought a bunch of hex and then sold it before it like went up and
Hmm.
so I think all of us and I'm saying to everybody who's watching, all of you, I think we can all learn something from NrdGrl's like experience and understanding of like crypto tribalism and like her ability to be able to make and maintain relationships within the crypto world. Like that's something that's rare. It's something that's valuable. And I think like, that's something we should strive for is,
Thanks, Matt. You know
yeah.
what I'm like really sad about right now is that Richard's like really recent live stream where he kind of like disparaged Charles Hoskinson and then like there was a bunch of attacks on Charles and social media in the days like that followed and like I consider Charles a friend of mine and I was like hey I want to talk like let's do and we were supposed to be doing a live stream coming up and now he won't talk to me and I'm not really thrilled about
Dang.
that
Yeah.
because it was nothing that
Um,
I did and it's like that sucks.
yeah. Yeah. That's definitely something to think about. Cause yeah, I think like a lot of us like are, I guess, more comfortable like criticizing, like, let's say XRP,
Founders of other
right?
projects, yeah.
Like XRP did some bad things that like seem to be true and like are coming to light. And like
Yeah.
at the same time, like it seems like they have a huge group of people who are trying to lead more people into the slaughterhouse. And so how do you deal with like the moral implications of like either supporting or being against a certain crypto that you would maybe see as like being a
I
bad
don't think
actor?
I don't think that I have moral obligations for what other people do with their money, because I don't try to tell people that they should do this with it or that they should do that with it. And, I consistently spout the message that people should always do their own research before they buy stuff, and that I'm going to do my own research. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be perfect. Like I've bought XRP before. I've had some. I don't have any right now, but I have had some before, like that doesn't mean that it's right. Like, it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. I think that it's really important for people to be responsible for their own financial decisions. And so I don't think that there are any moral implications of me talking to a community that is leading people to the slaughterhouse. Like I'm not responsible for what people do with their money. I'm only responsible for what I do with my money.
Mm. I knew you'd have something wise to say about it.
Thank you. That's my perspective on it. So like, I don't really care, like, I don't think that most people I don't think that there are a lot of people out there who are intentionally leading people into something that they think isn't going to be profitable. I think that people who are trying to get people to buy different currencies always think that that's going to be profitable, or I don't think that people are really like trying to get people wrecked. There are people who do that, but the majority, I don't think that is the case.
Yeah.
Maybe that's me being naive, but
yeah, I think you're right. And I don't have as much experience in the crypto world as others. Just with the few coins that I've dealt with, it seems like maybe it's like the fact that it like cryptography is like so secret. That it kind of like leads people to this place mentally where they're like feeling uneasy and more accusatory of like, especially other groups that kind of seem in competition or seem like, well, I want to be right about stuff. And I'm not like justifying that. I'm just trying to understand the psychology of it all.
Yeah. No, yeah, I guess so what's funny is that I had this group of friends, which is weird because I don't have any real life friends, but I somehow made friends with like a real life group of people. And they asked me to like come to, I don't know, this crypto cocktails thing. It was about a month ago. And there were a bunch of people who I hadn't met yet, but kind of got into crypto secondhand through somebody who I had gotten into crypto, who had gotten into crypto himself because of me. So I went to this little gathering and they were asking me all kinds of questions. And then I kind of told them like my specific area of focus within cryptocurrency. And they were like, oh, so that is a thing, because I have noticed that I've started to be like, oh, I don't like link marines, because then like when you catch yourself doing that, you just have to be like, why? That's so dumb. I'm like, they're like, yeah. They're like, so how do you get away with it? And I'm like, how do you stop doing it? I was like, you just have to realize that you're doing it and stop. It's really that simple.
Okay. Yeah. Having like awareness.
Just have to be like, oh, this is what I'm doing. This isn't productive. I'm going to stop doing it.
Yeah. And then you can put all that energy into things that are healthier for you than being critical and responsible for everybody else's decisions.
Right, because you're not, are you? I mean, like, are you responsible for anybody except for you? No, you're not. No. Yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, that's helpful. Any other things that you've noticed with your psychology background and being in crypto that we should be aware of?
Not that I can think of right now. I mean, like, I definitely, when I got into crypto, I saw like Ethereum as like this like massive connector, and was like, oh, this is about like our connections to the universe and like the oneness of all of the, I don't know, I see all that stuff there, but that may be just like going a little bit too crazy.
I believe in that too.
Yeah, okay. I figured you did.
What gave it away?
Oh, you mean just the fact that you're a, behavioral therapist who's into cryptocurrency? I have to assume that that means that you've thought about some of these things. Also, like I've looked into some of the some neuroscience and the, study of brains with psychedelics and I've like experimented with psychedelics and like I definitely think that there's something related to the blockchain within that,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it is?
I mean, I think it's really tied to the whole, like the old saying, like we are all Satoshi, but it's not. It's
Ooh,
like, yeah. So you see where I'm going? Yeah, like
yeah.
because we're all one. Yeah.
And I like that. And like Satoshi Nakamoto, like that name is that just John Smith in Japanese, or isn't that like, doesn't that fit too with like the model of like it's just a John Doe type of thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot actually that, could theoretically point to that possibility. And I'm not saying that that's what the case is because I know there are a lot of people who are very, very upset about that like phrase and, but
People upset?
yeah, oh yeah, because like, people who think that this person or that person is Satoshi and they're like, "Oh, you're just, making this magical story out of this and it's really just software and people need to stop." And you're like, "Well, but there might be something here." You know?
What are the odds Satoshi is the government?
Good.
What are
Hi.
the odds? Okay. Well,
Hi.
hi.
I
Huh.
would so I mean like so I would say that either it's like we're all somehow contributing to like the knowledge that it took to found this and it's probably because of like Neuralink already existing. But
Yeah.
like I mean if you don't want to go that far, if you don't want
I
to go
do.
that far into the theory, you do. I know you do. But I would say that like the next most likely scenario is that Satoshi Nakamoto is, some form of like, NSA, CIA, deep state, whatever.
Does that mean that AI is the government?
Yeah. So yeah, that. Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Haven't thought about that one before.
Yeah. So it's also
Yikes.
why when I first got into crypto, I was obsessed with this project. I'm still into it. I just haven't really been paying attention lately because I don't know. There's so much called the Singularity Net.
Okay, I am familiar with like some of the singularity like stuff, but not in
Yeah, like
crypto.
yeah, no, so there's a crypto project called the Singularity Net that's an AI marketplace enabled for AI too, which means that AI would just be able to exchange with AI without actually talking to, without actually getting the command from a human that they should be exchanging AIs and growing. And then like this is the like AI baby thing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So, okay. So it's not Paul LaRue who created Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I mean, okay. Paul LaRue was working for someone.
He was? Oh, that's what you think?
I mean, like, why else would he be in Supermax?
Because he was an international drug lord?
Yeah, that's not true. Um,
No?
I mean,
Did
like,
he wrote an early encryption program for the internet?
and he was working for someone.
Oh. Huh.
And I don't think that it was Paul LaRue all by himself, but he was definitely involved.
Yeah. Cuz he had coding skills, but he wasn't like, he may not have had the time.
I mean, they don't usually put international drug lords in Supermax, just like,
Whoa.
yeah,
Yeah, what's he doing in
yeah,
there?
yeah,
Well,
right?
they're trying to arrest like Arthur and stuff. So that's weird. Like, you're not supposed to arrest billionaires. You're supposed to like pretend like they're the greatest.
Yeah.
I guess he didn't pay off enough people when he was in Seychelles, or however you pronounce it, Seychelles,
The Seychelles, yeah.
with
I
his
guess
like
not.
bunker, his like, I don't know. Wow, I didn't expect all these twists and turns.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to like cancel all my shows and think about all this for like
no,
2 weeks.
no. Just like think about it slowly. It's kind of a lot,
Okay.
And like this is like years worth of philosophical thought about cryptocurrency and its development and like weird branches of research that like why would you ever do that? Why would you do that to yourself? I don't know.
I know.
You know?
I know.
You know why?
I mean, it's psychology. Like, it's the
Yeah.
study of the mind. You have to, you have to take your mind to some pretty interesting places if you want to study it.
Yeah, that's true. And there's definitely some interesting places, some weird things. Like I've learned the weirdest things studying cryptocurrency. Like why? But it happens. And then I find other people who have learned these weird things, and I'm like, I'm not alone.
That's good. Yeah,
Well,
that's reassuring to know that other people are thinking these things too, and going down the same rabbit holes.
yeah, it is. It is reassuring, for sure.
So when NrdGrl coin?
When NrdGrl coin, I created a cryptocurrency of my own. It's called Hugs. It exists.
Really?
I can send you some. Yeah, I can send you some.
Is it listed somewhere?
No, so I created the coin to have no monetary value because I wanted it to be used just for spreading hugs or like throughout cryptocurrency, because the whole point of it was to like try to help overcome some of the tribalism and negativity and hostilities that have been breeding within our respective communities for years. So it's not.
I would be honored. I would be honored.
I would be happy to send you some. I'll need your SLP address.
SLP?
Yeah, it's built on Bitcoin Cash, which was built on SLP because I could build it there for like under a penny. So that's what I did.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's NrdGrl coin.
Yeah.
It was designed to have no monetary value.
Okay. But real world value for sure, because spreading positivity.
That's what it's for.
And I think you do a great job of ASMR.
Thank you.
Yeah. You don't do it very often though, that I've seen. It's like every 3 months there's
Yeah, so I just did like my first like I guess real ASMR video where I was like
that was really cool.
Sounds. And that was like I just had that day done research. I was like, because I was saying that they were ASMR with just me saying the word like slowly and weirdly. And then someone told me that's not really ASMR. And I was like, what's really ASMR then? So and then I was like, when I found out, I was like, oh, I got to do that. So I did some research on how to make sounds with your hands that are ASMR. And so I'm going to do more of them. But cool. Sometimes I don't want to like flood the market because I think people think they're really weird. They are really weird, but it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's relaxing and educational and all kinds of stuff. So,
and making that whisper video was really fun. I enjoyed it.
Was it?
Yeah.
And it was for your work too, right?
It was. I got paid to make that video.
Nice. Well, it's really been enjoyable to talk with you here, and so thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. It was great to talk to you. I hope that I don't miss the next Hex behavioral therapist evening.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to having you on next time we do it.
Okay, I can't wait.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again and have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.